Okay, so we're going to talk about the importance of speaking task in the PTE Academics.
Okay.
So Rex, what do you think is the most important part of speaking?
I think the most important part is, of course, something we'll talk about later, of course, is confidence. Being able to get your point across and say it in a clear manner. And I suppose that's what a lot of people struggle with, is what is a clear manner? So I suppose that would mean just being able to say, it's not necessarily accent based, because I think a lot of people think you have to sound like an Australian or sound like a Western person. It's not necessary. You just have to be yourself, but be able to say it in a clear manner.
Oh, that's okay, yeah. So what do you think the students struggle most with? Is it because of the accent, or is it because of the pronunciation? Like, what do you think is like the struggle with the most?
Yeah, I'd say probably with the pronunciation, because I think a lot of the students, such as the ones studying here, have been in Australia for, say, 2 or 3 years. So they've developed a certain method of speaking, which to native speakers is understandable. But as you know, when it comes to a test, sometimes those are the same things that can cause a little bit of grief, because the test is more particular about using certain elements that perhaps they've never learned or don't even realize they're not using until they take an exam class and are corrected. So I think, yeah, that would probably relate to some pronunciation aspects, which of course gets into intonation as well.
Of course. Yeah, speaking of intonation, that was my next question.
Yep.
Like, how important is the rising and the falling of the tone?
Oh, it's very important. As you know, it's a really hard one, because some cultures, they don't really have that. Even here in Australia, as you know, if you work in certain industries, Australian people don't really use it, because when we're in a hurry, we just give very short answers. Yep, and it's done. So it's not a major factor, but once again, because this is an exam class, they want to be able to hear, and basically they're wanting to hear at least the 3 levels that we have, which is the high, the flat, and the low. I call it the la la la. So you should be able to have a la la la. And a lot of students laugh, but they can't do it. So it's just a way of showing, and again, a really good way of learning intonation that's a fun way is music. Music is an excellent way, and it doesn't necessarily have to be English. Just something that has that rising and falling tone. I say, well, you're in Australia, there's water, think of it as surfing. Waves go up, the waves come down. If you're in a place in the water, roller coaster. Right. And that's why I think a lot of people say, well, English sounds like singing, because to a certain extent, it is.
That's perfect. Also wanted to talk about like the pronunciation. Like, obviously everyone has different accents and they pronounce different words differently. Yeah. So if it's an exam, someone says tomato, someone says tomato. Yeah. Like, will they get the same marks?
That's a really good question. I guess the other thing relates to spelling as well, such as in color, C-O-L-O-U-R or O-R. The PTE is quite easygoing in that they accept both American and British English. And as we sort of said before, they're not as caught up on accent as, say, maybe IELTS is. I think that would be a major difference. In IELTS, since you're talking to just one person, accent does play a part in your overall, say, fluency and or pronunciation score. Whereas this is computer marked, it doesn't have such an effect that it would in another test. So as long as they can understand you, it doesn't have a major effect. In other words, you can be yourself. So you don't have to struggle to sound like someone else. It's just more of the clarity that's important, which relates to other elements within the pronunciation scale, I suppose.
Okay. And this is leading to the end of the interview.
Sure.
Like you said before, confidence is really important. So if a person is to be confident, like which part of his speaking will get boosted the most?
Sure. Well, I think confidence is probably important for several factors. The first of which is more technical. As you know, there's a little mic recording you when you're talking, and there'll be other people talking in the room when you're talking as well. So it's really important that the confidence will display in the loudness of your voice, actually, to a certain extent. And if you're not confident and speak more meekly, as we say, you won't be able to hear yourself, because everyone around you will be talking. So just from that point of view, it's really important to develop a volume that you're comfortable with, but maybe beyond your normal voice, because you have to hear yourself. And probably the best way to develop that is to go out places, like go in the shopping center or to busy restaurants, and practice talking in places where it's not quiet. Because in the test, when everyone's talking together, you might get really thrown off, because maybe it's not a situation you're used to doing. It's almost like talking to a friend at a club, and there's loud music in the background, and you almost stop talking because you say, I can't hear you. You can't do that in the PTE test. You have to get through that. So I'd say exposing yourself to those kind of situations is an excellent means of doing it. Again, maybe the club isn't the best thing, because if you're there, you're maybe not studying. But just as an example of the kind of venue. But anywhere outdoors, but the main thing is you're communicating in English. I couldn't stress enough how many people say, oh, I want to do, but I ask them what they're doing outside of class, and very little of it at home involves using English. So I'd say, because the class is short, say 2, 3, 4 weeks, use that time and try to make it 24 hours of English a day, and you'll get your objective much sooner. I know people say, but it's hard, my partner. The people I'm with, no one uses English. Well, they're not going to help you much in the future and pay your bills, are they, or help you with immigration. So if you tell them, hey, look, I got a test, please help me, I'm sure they would. So it's just being really honest with yourself that we can help you heaps within the class, but how you take the information and use it outside of class is almost twice as important. And it's possible, so just set yourself up in situations that allow you to use what you're learning.
Okay, and now for the final question, like someone is going to give the test tomorrow for the speaking bit. What will be your one final tip?
I would say, again, as we sort of summarize what we said before, you have to be confident, be aware of what they're asking you to do in the instructions, because they clearly usually outline as far as what the task and what you need to do, and to be aware as far as the strategies, as far as which sections score the most points. Because as you know, the PT is judged, and there's ones that say from 1 to a 6 as far as 30 to 40 points in a scale down. Those are the sections you want to really make sure you're confident about so that you can get your score. So of course you want an overall knowledge, but really make sure in the ones that get you the most points, you're focused on and able to do well. That will build your confidence as you go through the test.
Okay. Thank you, Rex, for this beautiful insight. Hopefully that'll help a lot of PTE students. That'll be all.
Okay, thank you very much.